On the 14th of July, 1920, a member of Parliament rose in the House of Commons and put a careful little question to the Attorney General. The Treasury was paying off its victory bonds by drawing numbers out of revolving boxes spun by young women hired for the job. Was that, the member wanted to know, a lottery? The law officer of the Crown answered him, and the answer went into the official record. No, sir, that consequence does not follow. The man asking the question was Horatio Bottomley. At that moment, he was running a prize draw of his own and selling £1 shares in it to the readers of his own newspaper, which had reached a circulation of 1.5 million. He had just got the government to say on the record that a draw like that was not a lottery. 2 years later, a jury at the Old Bailey sat through 8 days of evidence about where that money had gone, retired, and came back in 28 minutes, guilty on 23 counts out of 24, 7 years penal servitude. And on the 1st of August, 1922, the House of Commons he had been questioning voted to expel him. Not one member voted against. This is the story of the orphan from Bethnal Green who sold England its own patriotism, retail, and pocketed the difference. He was born on the 23rd of March, 1860, at 16 St. Peter's Street in Bethnal Green, in the East End of London. His father, William King Bottomley, was a tailor's cutter. His mother was Elizabeth Holyoake. The father died in 1864 and the mother the year after, and the boy was an orphan at 5. From 1869, he spent 5 years in an orphanage at Erdington, on the edge of Birmingham, endowed by the pen manufacturer Josiah Mason. At 14, he walked out of it and did not come back. He ran errands, then got work as a clerk for solicitors in the city, and he learned shorthand well enough to take down evidence in court. That last part matters more than it sounds. Year after year, a boy with no schooling to speak of sat in courtrooms writing down every word, watching barristers work a jury. He was learning a trade nobody was teaching him. In 1884, he started printing his own paper, the Hackney Hansard. 4 years later, he was in on something considerably larger. In January 1888, a small city sheet called the London Financial Guide appeared, and within weeks it was renamed. It became the Financial Times, and Horatio Bottomley was one of its founders and its first chairman. Hold that thought for the next half hour. The man who would eventually take the savings of small investors by the £100,000 began his career by building them a paper for investors. In January 1889, he floated a company on the London Stock Exchange called the Hansard Publishing Union, capital £500,000. For a year and a half, it looked like a triumph. In July 1890, the company reported a profit of £40,877 and paid its shareholders a dividend of 8%. By one account of the books, the cash for that dividend came out of a £50,000 debenture issue, which is to say, out of borrowed money rather than out of trade. By December, the company could not meet the interest. There was a compulsory winding up, and by May 1891, Bottomley was filing for bankruptcy. Shareholders who had put in £500,000 were counting what was left. At least £100,000 of it had stayed with him, so they prosecuted him for fraud. The trial ran from the 30th of January to the 26th of April, 1893, before Sir Henry Hawkins. Bottomley conducted his own defense, which is what a man does when he has spent his youth in the back of courtrooms writing down what works. The jury acquitted him. And this is the hinge of the whole life. He did not slink away from the Old Bailey in 1893. He walked out of it with a reputation. A man who beats a fraud charge in person against the city is not a suspect anymore. He is a financial genius. The acquittal did not save Horatio Bottomley. It promoted him. He wanted Parliament. In 1900, he stood in Hackney South and lost by 338 votes. On the 8th of February 1906, he stood again as a Liberal and took the seat with 6,736 votes, a majority of 3,479. 3 months later, on the 12th of May, he published the first issue of the paper that made him, John Bull. It ran campaigns, named villains, promised the reader that somebody was finally on his side. In 1910, it was selling 500,000 copies. By 1912, 1.5 million. Its selling line was the whole business model in 8 words. If you read it in John Bull, it is so, not we believe, not our sources say. It is so because we printed it. Then the ground opened. He had lost a lawsuit over £49,000 and could not pay. Bankrupts cannot sit in the Commons, so on the 16th of May 1912, he took the Chiltern Hundreds and gave up his seat, and on the 11th of June, a receiving order went against him. His liabilities came to £233,000. Hackney South went to a Liberal named Hector Morrison. At 52, Horatio Bottomley was finished in public life. Then Europe went to war. He had no seat and no money, and he had the loudest voice in England. In September 1914, he held his first big war meeting at the London Opera House. On the 14th of January 1915, he filled the Royal Albert Hall for something billed as the Great War Rally. From 1914 to 1918, he spoke at more than 300 war meetings up and down the country. There is a photograph of him at Yarmouth, standing on the deck of a captured German submarine that had been put on show, addressing the sightseers who had queued up to look at it. That was the act. Wherever a crowd formed, he was on top of it. Now look at the terms. Recruiting knights he did for nothing. Everything else he did for a share of the takings. At Swindon, the hall took £125. £37 of it went to the Soldiers' Fund. £88 went to Horatio Bottomley. From March 1915, he also had a weekly column in the Sunday Pictorial, so the voice from the platform on Saturday was in the House on Sunday. He was not selling news to these people, and he was not really selling patriotism either. He was selling membership. You are the decent, ordinary Englishman. I am your man in London, and the two of us against the rest. Every meeting, every column, every campaign built the same asset, and it was the only asset he ever had. Trust, at scale, from people with very little money. In 1919, he worked out how to cash it. In June 1919, the government issued 4% victory bonds. They were not a lottery, but they behaved a little like one. They came in units of £5, and they were paid off over time by an annual draw at face value. £5 was too much for his readers, so in the summer of 1919, John Bull offered them the Victory Bond Club. Put in £1. The club buys the bonds and holds them for you. There will be draws every year, with prizes running up to £20,000, paid out of the interest. It sounded legal because the state was doing the same thing. And to close the last doubt, on the 14th of July, 1920, Bottomley stood up in the Commons and asked the Attorney General whether the government's own revolving boxes of numbered discs made the Victory Bond scheme a lottery. He was told no. He now had the government's answer in Hansard, and he was the only man in the country with a use for it. The money came into an address in the West End, 26 King Street, St. James's. In October 1919, club money bought 2 newspapers, the National News and the Sunday Evening Telegram, for £41,500. In 1920, the club was merged into something called the Thrift Prize Bond Club, run out of Paris and holding French Credit National bonds. Around the same time, Autumns took full control of John Bull. He was made editor for life. A year later, they bought him out for £25,000. The trouble was never the sales. It was the books. There were no proper books. Money came in from small subscribers in every post and went out again against whatever needed paying, and nobody could tell £1 from another. Refunds were paid twice. A scheme that promises annual draws for years needs an accounting system, and there wasn't one. Then he ran into a man who did not care who he was. Reuben Bigland had been a business partner. In September 1921, Bigland printed a pamphlet, and its title was The Downfall of Horatio Bottomley. It called the Victory Bond Club exactly what it was, the latest and greatest swindle. His lawyers told him to leave it alone. He sued him anyway for criminal libel, and then had him charged with blackmail on top. At Bow Street in October 1921, the committal hearing went badly enough to damage him in public. On the 23rd of January 1922, the libel case came on, and Bottomley's own counsel offered no evidence at all. Bigland walked out discharged. On the 18th of February at Shrewsbury, the blackmail charge collapsed. The jury acquitted Bigland in 3 minutes, and Bottomley was left with the costs. Only now, with the whole thing said out loud in open court twice, did the police start looking at the accounts. In March 1922, he was charged with fraudulent conversion. The trial opened at the Central Criminal Court on the 18th of May, 1922, before Mr. Justice Salter. 24 counts of fraudulent conversion. £170,000 taken across several of his club schemes. He was 62 years old, and the room had changed since 1893. One habit had not. He got the court to grant him a 15-minute break every day, and in the break he drank champagne for medical reasons. 8 days of evidence. Then the jury went out and came back in 28 minutes. Guilty on 23 of the 24 counts. Salter sentenced him to 7 years penal servitude. Not a fine, not a few months. 7 years of prison labor for taking the money of the families whose sons he had spent the war helping to recruit. He appealed, and in July the Court of Criminal Appeal threw it out. By the 17th of July, 1922, the record shows him in Wormwood Scrubs, and he was still on paper a Member of Parliament. The official Gazette that summer still printed him as Horatio Bottomley, MP of King Street, St. James's. A conviction does not take a seat away by itself. Somebody in the House had to stand up and do it. On the 29th of July, he wrote to the Commons from prison. He did not admit the thing. He never once admitted the thing. Not guilty of conscious fraud. 3 days later, on the 1st of August, 1922, the leader of the House, Sir Austin Chamberlain, moved the motion that Mr. Horatio Bottomley be expelled this House. It was carried without a single vote against. Hackney South voted again on the 18th of August, and the coalition unionist took it. 9,118 votes to 9,046, a margin of 72. Even with their man in the scrubs, the district very nearly went his way. He spent his first year sewing mailbags at Wormwood Scrubs. Then he was moved to Maidstone, and from about 1926 he was put in the prison print shop as a proofreader. According to the historian David Renton and to the memoirs of the Maidstone governor, that was the softest job in the prison, and among the other prisoners, Bottomley was treated as a kind of king. The man who told 1.5 million readers what was true spent the middle of his sentence correcting other men's spelling. He came out at the end of July 1927, having served a little over 5 years. He was 67 and he tried to do it all over again. In June 1928, he launched a new paper called John Blunt, and it lasted until September of the next year. He went abroad on a lecture tour, and that failed too. Nobody was buying. The trick had only ever worked because the audience believed he was on their side, and the Old Bailey had taken that away in 28 minutes. On the 18th of March, 1930, he was declared bankrupt for the second time. That same year, his wife, Eliza, died, and his son-in-law, Jefferson Cone, put him out of the house called the Dicker. In September 1932, he took his last engagement, the Windmill Theatre in Soho, doing a turn-on stage, telling stories about the great days. On the 26th of May 1933, he died in the Middlesex Hospital at 73, with nothing. He was cremated at Golders Green. So here is the account. £500,000 raised in 1889, and at least 100,000 of it gone. And a jury let him go. £233,000 of debt in 1912. Then more than 300 meetings in 4 years of war, telling the families whose sons were going to the front that he was their man, and £1 shares sold to those same people afterwards, and £170,000 converted to his own use. He was acquitted once, and he spent the next 29 years proving the jury wrong. The file on Horatio Bottomley of Bethnal Green, founder of the Financial Times, member for Hackney South, proprietor of John Bull, convict Maidstone print shop. Case closed.